Hi, welcome to Gifted and Talented Education's P5 English program. Today, we will be doing a current affairs close passage. Before we begin, please read the passage once through to gain an understanding of the story. On top of that, you may be able to gain context clues from the passage. Please pause the video until you have finished reading this story. As of now, you should have finished reading the passage. Let us move on with the story. Now, let us proceed to question 1. But before I begin, I would like to explain a couple of words to you. Firstly, the word over here, thoroughfare. This means street or boulevard. And this word here, thronged, it means filled with many people. Alright, so over here, it states that it is one of the most blank cafes on a street that is filled at this time of year with festive shoppers, probably Christmas shoppers. People who are buying gifts for their loved ones, and that's in addition to everyday office crowds and tourists. So, what do you think is the answer for question 1? Again, there are many people in this area at this time of year with the festive shoppers, in addition to the everyday office crowds and tourists. Ready? So, for question 1, the answer, if you have guessed busiest, you are correct. And if you have guessed famous, you're also correct. Other words can be popular. All these words are acceptable. Alright, so that's the end of question 1. Let us move on to question 2. For question 2, we can see that something bad happened on Monday. To be specific, a pre-Christmas nightmare played blank inside the Lynch Cafe, blank Sydney's Martin Place. The key word for question 2 is this word, played. This is actually known as a phrasal verb. When you have two words, two separate words, with one meaning, you call it a phrasal verb. In this case, the meaning of the phrasal verb is unfolded. What do you think is the answer? There is only one answer for question 2. And if you have answered out, you are correct. Played out is the answer for question 2. Alright, now let's look at question 3. Question 3 is actually a pretty easy question. If you were to look here, the Lynn Cafe, this is actually the name of the cafe, right? And it's blank Sydney's Martin Place, which is an area, which is probably a street. What do you think the answer is? If you guess that the answer is a preposition, you're correct. But what is the word? Very good. The answer is on. Right? So it's inside the Lynn Cafe on Sydney's Martin Place. Alright, now let's move on to question 4. As you can see, the clue is over here. A gunman had taken several people blank. Now, the gunman has seized several people and are holding them as blank so that the police will not come in and try to bring him under control. What do you think is the answer? If your answer is hostage, that is correct. Another answer could also be prisoner. Prisoner is another acceptable answer for this question. Okay, now let's move on to question 5. So the gunman is brandishing an Islamic blank above a Lynn store sign and the words Merry Christmas. So the clues are here, above the Lynn store sign and words Merry Christmas. What do you think he's holding at this point of time? An Islamic blank. Guessed it? Well, if your answer is the Islamic banner, you are correct. If your answer is also Islamic flag, that is actually acceptable. Right? Both answers are acceptable in this case. Just for context, this is the picture of the flag. Okay? Let us move on to the next question. For question 6, we have to read this part here. Two of them, young women wearing lint aprons who raced out and into the blank of police officers. Now, the police officers are here to help them. So, how do you think the two women felt as they ran towards them? Or you can also look at it this way. The police officers are physically there. So the two women are running into the blank of the police officers. What do you think? Well, for question 6, if your answer is safety, you are correct, and also arms. Arms is also an acceptable answer for this question. Alright, now let's move on to question 7. Question 7 is actually pretty easy. The key word here is up, the word up. It's another phrasal verb, similar to question 2. The officers wearing black SWAT-style uniforms had earlier blank up position. So they have adopted this position. The police officers are there at the moment. So, what's the answer? If your answer is taken, you are correct. Now, let's move on to question 8. Alright, for question 8, we have to just look here. At this point of time, some onlookers took photos to post on social media, such as Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. So, how do you think other people reacted? How did they feel at the time? Obviously, it's something unbelievable. Therefore, your answer should be disbelief. Alright? Alright, now let's move on to question 9. But before we begin question 9, I would like to take the chance to explain a couple of words to you. In this paragraph, I would like you to take note of a couple of words. Firstly, hubs. Secondly, length weight. The word hubs means the center, right? So Australia has long seemed far removed from the center of Islamist extremism. Maybe because of its location, it's situated far away from conflict areas such as the Middle East. Alright, and the next word is length weight, which means to give credence or even to give credibility to suspicions that the threat had come home. Alright, so that's the meaning of these two words. Alright, let's go back to question 9. Over here in question 9, the clue is this. The police had conducted raids blank the country. So it's from one end of the country to the other end of the country. What do you think is the answer for question 9? If your answer is across, you are correct. Very good. Now let's go on to the next question, question 10. Question 10 is pretty easy. The clue for question 10 is right here. Member of the blank. This is actually more commonly known as a phrase. A member of the general population. What's another word for general population? If your answer is public, your answer is correct. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Question 11. This question is really easy. However, before I begin, I would like to explain this word here, radicalized. To become radicalized is to take a radical stance on something. Okay, moving on, let's go back to question 11. Here, there was a new law designed to prevent citizens from traveling overseas to take blank in conflicts. Okay, the key word here is take. This is another phrasal verb. To take blank in conflicts is to participate in the conflict itself. What's your answer? If your answer is take part, you are correct. The answer is take part in conflicts. Very good. Right, on to the next question. Question 12. In this question, it states that this incident could happen blank. Think about it. It could have happened in this person's home, or it could have happened somewhere else. Where do you think it could happen? If your answer is anywhere at all, you are correct. Great, now let's move on to the next question. Question 13. This question is slightly tricky. Over here we can see that this place is a tourist outlet and it sells things to people. The key word here is stopping point. Certain tours actually have a set itinerary and a guide to bring you from place to place. Such tours are called what kind of tours? Do you know the answer? It starts with the letter O. If you're thinking organized, you are correct. Well done. Another answer for this question can also be guided. Guided tours is another correct answer. Let's move on to question 14. For question 14, we must remember, Right now, there is an emergency. So what do you think happened to the performances going on at that time? It's a really easy answer. If your answer is cancelled, you're correct. Acceptable answers would be stopped or postponed, right? These three answers are all acceptable. Let us move on. The clue for question 15 comes before and after the blank. Over here, this person has said that she has lost her business because of the road and store blank. What is happening right now? The city is in lockdown. In other words, nobody can move in or out of the city. Everyone should stay at home and everyone should remain calm. So nobody can go out, nobody can come in because of the road and store. Closures, very good. All right, so that's the answer for question 15. Okay, so for the last question, question 16, they are saying that Uber, a taxi firm, is no blank to controversy. Now, the keyword here is no and to controversy. These are the keywords. It's actually a phrase. They are trying to say that Uber has experience with controversy. In other words, they are they are very familiar with it. So they are no blank to controversy. It's something they're used to. Any guesses? The answer starts with S. Alright? Okay, so the answer over here, if you guessed it, well done. The answer is stranger, no stranger to controversy. Okay, and that concludes our passage 1. Let us look at passage 2. Before I break down the passage for you, please take some time to read passage 2. You may start now. As of now, you should have finished reading passage 2. Let us move on with the passage. Let us look at question 1. In question 1, the passage states that these two boys, Hayden and Logan, they like to play blank. Now, where? Where do you think they like to play? Let's continue reading the passage. And sometimes that means digging for bugs in the garden. That's actually the clue for question 1. Where is the garden located at? If your answer is outside, you are correct. Right, now let's move on to question 2. For question 2, we have to read the passage over here. With Port Botany's red imported fire and outbreak threat blank to their street. So the keyword here is the fire and outbreak threat. Okay, it has now blank to their street. In other words, it has come from somewhere else and it can now be found at their street. The first letter of the answer is S. Any guesses? If your answer is spreading, you are correct. The threat is now spreading to their street. Right, on to question 3. Okay, however, for question 3, the clue can be found in the previous paragraph. Over here, it states that as many as 100 blank will blitz the control area. First, let me give you the meaning of the word blitz. Blitz means a sudden concentrated effort. In other words, 100 blank will focus on this area. So who are the ones that will focus on this area? 100 what? Again, the answer can be found in the previous paragraph. You may read the previous paragraph for some clues. Any guesses? Very good. As you have guessed, this is the keyword, okay? Inspectors. So as many as 100 inspectors. That's the answer. Right? They will blitz the control area. Alright, now before we go on to the next paragraph, let us look at this keyword here. Surveillance. Surveillance means observation, right? So these few areas, Port Botany, Phillip Bay, so on and so forth, are being targeted by an observation team. Right? That's the meaning of this word. Now, on to the next paragraph. For the next paragraph, in question 4, the keyword is actually in the previous paragraph, this paragraph. Right? So here, Dr. Andrew Sanger says that vigilant and extensive blank is vital to ensure the ants have not spread. Okay, again, the keyword is in the previous paragraph. Can you guess the word? Let me give you some clues. Over here, he says that you have to stay vigilant. In other words, you have to stay very aware and you need to observe your surroundings. Can you link this word to a word we've learned just now? If you guessed this word, surveillance, you are correct. The answer is surveillance. Right, let's move on to question 5. In question 5, the keyword is here, and rear yards. Okay, rear means back. So, inspectors will focus on blank and backyards. It's very straightforward. You should be able to guess it by now, not just the back, but also the front yard. Very good. The answer is front. Question 6 is slightly trickier. The keyword is the detection site. Okay, so there will be inspections conducted in the front and rear yards of randomly selected properties within about 2 kilometers, blank the detection site. So the origin will be the detection site. Everything starts what? Here. Any guesses? Well, if you've guessed from, you are correct. The answer is from. Very good. Let's go on to the next page. For this page, we first have to remember what you've learned so far. The fire ants can be found outdoors. There will be checks conducted in the front and backyards of homes. So, the clue is here. Will there be any requirement for indoor inspections? What do you think? It's very simple. Using what we know so far, obviously there is no requirement. Alright, that's the answer. There is no requirement for any indoor inspections. For question 8, there are multiple answers. The clue is over here. The inspectors are actually looking for any blank of the red imported fire ants. What is the most suitable answer for this question? If you've guessed for any signs, you are correct. Another answer can be evidence. They are looking for evidence for signs, okay, of this red imported fire ants. Okay? For question 9, the clue is actually in the same paragraph. Okay, she's worried about the effect of the fire ant outbreak. What's another word for effect that starts with the letter I? This is a very big clue. Very good, it's right below. The answer is the impact. The impact of a fire ant outbreak. Okay? Now, moving on to the next question, we can look over here. It's the impact blank the whole environment. This is a preposition. It is the impact, okay, again the clue is the impact for the previous question, and for this question, okay, 9 and 10. It's the impact blank the whole environment. It's a very easy word, it's a preposition. If you've guessed the impact on the whole environment, you are right. Okay, before we move on to the next question, let's look at a couple of words. This word here, aggressive, means very hostile. And over here, port areas. Port areas refer to seaside areas. Okay, now let's move on to the next question, question 11. In this question, you can see that the inspectors are carrying something about fire ants and how to detect them. Okay, so the keywords here is simply inspectors carrying blank about fire ants. If you want to know more about fire ants, what must you have? The clue for question 11 is that the word starts with the letter I. Any ideas? If you've guessed carrying information, you're correct. Alright, now let's look at question 12 in the next paragraph. The clue will be over here, residents and the control area. Okay, it's talking about the place, so we have to use a preposition. Right? Residents blank the control area. There's a couple of answers here. One of the answers starts with the letter W. This is the slightly harder one, and the other one is very simple, it's an easy word. Okay, it starts with the letter I. Can you guess both answers? Any one of the answers is fine. Okay, again, it's a preposition. If you've guessed inside, you are correct. That's the easier answer, and the harder answer will be within. Okay? So both answers are acceptable. You may choose any one of them. Question 13. The answer to this question is actually a verb. Okay? The nests may look blank disturbed soil, or a small mound of soil with no visible entry holes. It looks similar to disturbed soil. It's an easy word, it starts with L. And yes, you've guessed it, it may look like. And that's the answer for question 13. On to question 14. First, before I move on with the question, take note that question 14 is very, very tricky. Okay, you have to pay attention. It's the start of a paragraph, so it must be a capital letter. This is a very common careless mistake. Please make sure you check. Anyway, for question 14, it's a conjunction. The DPI said households had been informed the fire ends. However, many they spoke to were unaware of the outbreak. In spite of telling them, many people didn't know about it. Any guesses? Yes, the answer is while. While the DPI said that households had been informed, many of them said that they were unaware. Okay? Alright, we've reached the last question of this passage. Okay, the clue for the question is actually the whole paragraph. Investigations are continuing into how and when the fire ants blank arrived. Okay? What do you think is the answer? When they what arrived? The origin of the fire ants. There are a couple of answers here. You can either use the word which starts with the letter F, or you can use a word which starts with the letter O. For the last question, if you have guessed first arrived, you are correct, and you also can say originally. Both answers are acceptable. Right? Okay, so this is the last question for the paper. I hope you had fun doing this assignment with me. Have a good day.